Sometimes the loudest revenge is silence, until the day you walk back in holding their biggest client. My name is Julia Reed. I'm 39, and until a spring afternoon 6 months ago, I was the senior operations director at Albright Logistics. On that day, I learned something useful. A person can be erased in exactly 7 words. Julia, you no longer fit our direction. The words came from Mark Leland, our new CEO of 8 months. A man who loved the spotlight the way an actor loves a matinee. We were in the main auditorium, Room B, capacity 240. It was our quarterly town hall, live-streamed to 11 satellite offices. Everyone had those flimsy paper name cards. The camera crane creaked. The stage lights were hot enough to toast bread. I stood at the end of row 3 with a notepad and a Sharpie. I'd already queued 3 slides for the ops update. Service levels at 98.6%, on-time performance at 96.2%, cost per mile down 12% year over year. It was the work I'd done for a decade. Build system, measure, improve, repeat. I like tight budgets and ugly problems. Problems tell the truth. Mark wore a suit the color of dry graphite and a smile he practiced. As part of our revitalization, he said, we're restructuring operations. Today, we're saying goodbye to someone who's been with us for a long time. I felt the room lean forward. He gestured toward me. Julia, thank you for your service. Security will help you with your things. Shock hangs. Then it drops. 100 phones lifted. Gasps, whispers, the hot hum of the lights. I felt the grain of paper cutting into my palm and realized I'd crushed the name card. A security guard, Nick, who'd once helped me jump a dead battery in January, stood up at the back. His face said, I hate this. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't ask for my slides. I reached for my badge, your standard white rectangle with my photo from 2016, that awkward mid-blink look I kept meaning to replace. I set it on the aisle seat and watched it slip onto the carpet, landing face down like a little white gravestone. Mark lifted a hand, feigning solemnity. Let's stay on schedule, he said. I walked out, heat at my neck, the taste of tin under my tongue. Doors hushed closed behind me. In the empty corridor, the echo of applause rose, polite, confused, the kind people give when they don't know what else to do. I rode the elevator down alone. It stops at L with an old man wheeze. I stepped into the lobby's refrigerated air. Sunlight from the atrium threw my reflection onto marble. A tall woman with steady eyes, hair scraped back, lips pressed thin. I looked like a person bracing for a wave. I didn't brace. I pivoted. When Mark arrived the previous fall, October 3rd, I remember because the vending machines all ate our dollars that day. He called himself a reorg whisperer. He was 31, which he made sound like 21, talking about fail fast and disruption as a lifestyle choice. He slapped slogans on walls and demanded speed. He didn't ask where our speed came from. Here's what he didn't see. My team taking 2 a.m. calls to reroute refrigerated trucks when mountain passes closed. My analyst riding buses out to the docks to time the geofenced handoffs because the carrier's EDI was off by 17 minutes. The unpretty math, the spreadsheets no one clapped for. The work of keeping $30 million in contracts upright. I stopped wearing dresses to work after his second week. Every time I did, he tried to hand me the clicker and have me co-present his slide stew. I learned to sit at the end of the table. Near the printer hum, sleeves rolled. In January, my team proposed a plan we'd built for EcoFleet, a national EV fleet company that represented 40% of our revenue. The plan used dynamic slotting, rollout in 3 phases, and a reverse auction on low utilization time windows to chop dwell time. It wasn't sexy. It was rock. The EcoFleet COO, Mara Chen, loved it. You'll save us $1.2 million in the first year, she said. Julia, you're the only reason we're still here. Mark returned from a conference with a slide template that bled teal and magenta. He slapped his logo on our plan and put his initials in the footer. I called him out once in his office early February. The team needs air credit, I said. They live on oxygen like everybody else. He leaned back in his chair. So do I tried to joke. We can share the tank. He steepled his fingers. We need flexibility from senior leaders. You read inflexible. I read that email 3 times after it hit. Subject line, transition support. Body, micro message number 1, email, February 11th, 8:04 p.m., Julia. Make sure your department transitions smoothly over the next 60 days. Don't make this difficult. Transitions began to appear everywhere. Hallway whispers, calendar invites, sticky notes that said sunset. Meanwhile, a boutique firm out of Phoenix called Arcadia Ops appeared in our vendor registry, set to preferred with 0 due diligence. I asked compliance. Compliance shrugged toward legal. Legal rolled eyes toward Mark's chief of staff. I'm a data person. I pulled the logs. Arcadia's registration shipped through at 11:47 p.m. on a Saturday. The IP traced to one of Mark's WeWork satellite offices. The invoice for process advisory matched one of our canceled internal trainings down to the dot leader. He was buying our plan from himself. I printed it all. The audit logs, the before, after budgets, the redacted vendor file. The paper stack was 1.3 inches high. Paper his heft Mark couldn't dismiss with a sentence. Then Mara called. Your guy keeps missing our study sessions, she said. Her voice is warm New Jersey, the kind that can turn steel in a sentence. Every time I ask for the ops director, he sends me a VP of vision. Julia, if you ever left, you would have a home here. You're the work. You don't jump houses because someone offers you a sofa. You jump when the floor caves. It caved in March, at Town Hall, under lights as bright as confession. I didn't go home that afternoon. I went 2 blocks over to Hart & Miles, a law firm with a lobby that smells like dry paper and expensive citrus. Brian Miles is a friend of a friend. We'd had coffee once years ago about a nonprofit. Do you want to sue? Brian asked. He has the voice of a person who talks people out of climbing ledges. I sipped water. It tasted like stainless steel. No. You were fired in front of 200 people. Yes. Julia, they humiliated you. They humiliated themselves. He studied me. So what do you want? A witness. To what? To the rest of the story. I handed him a flash drive labeled Truth in black Sharpie. Inside were the logs, the invoices, the screenshots of Mark's edits to our plans, the timestamp on Arcadia's registration, and this. I hadn't told anyone. The voicemail he left me the night before town hall, thinking he was talking to his chief of staff. He'd called my number by mistake. Micro message number 2. Voicemail. March 20th, 11:52 p.m. Once Julia's gone, we'll take her plan and rename it. She'll be forgotten by next quarter. Brian listened with his eyebrows moving only once, at forgotten. He slid the flash drive back to me. You're not a plaintiff, he said. You're an archivist. Call me if someone decides to rewrite my memory, I said. He smiled, a lawyer's thin one. And in the meantime? In the meantime, I billed. The first week after the firing, I slept until 6:30 instead of 5:15. That felt like theft and therapy. I ate toast with jam from a jar my mother made, which tasted like July at the farmer's market. The last month, I remember not being tired. On day 3, I took $45,000 from the savings account I used to call my roof fund and filed an LLC, JR Systems. On day 5, I signed a lease for 220 square feet above an upholstery shop that smelled like glue and leftover sun. The office had a window with a warped view of an alley and a heater that clanked like a man making his bed. I hung a corkboard. I set my old badge in a frame on the shelf, not as bitterness but as a timepiece. A little white clock that read, "Never again." On day 6, I texted Mara. If you want the plan, I can implement it as an outside consultant. 6-week pilot, 2 DCs, results public. Month to month after. Jay, she called 5 minutes later. I don't want the plan, she said. I want you. We drafted a scope in 9 lines. Agreed on $400,000 for the first year with a 10% performance kicker, and set the pilot start for April 10th. We'll do this in daylight, I said. No one gets blindsided. I bought a second-hand plotter from a closing architecture firm and mapped what I already knew by muscle memory. Pinch points at Dock 4. Morning congestion from 8:40 to 9:15. The 17-minute carrier EDI delay. Those cursed pallets that balked at RFID like stubborn horses. I hired Nash on contract. A data kid from my old team who saw the world in arrays and could find a standard deviation in a spaghetti bowl. He had been let go in the first sunset wave. I offered $7,500 a month and a decent chair. He said yes before I finished the sentence. We worked until the heater gave up each night. At 11, the alley cat made rounds like a constable. We ate noodles from the shop downstairs and turned the napkins into flowcharts. And on the corkboard, I pinned 3 words. No overtime rule. Not for us. For them. The rule said, we will close every day at 6 unless a truck is literally on fire. I didn't want a team of people who had to prove their love by bleeding on weekends. I wanted people who could go home and come back with eyes that saw. Micro message number 3. Email, April 10th, 6:58 a.m. Julia, we are thrilled to start today. Your pilot is why we stayed. Monsieur Chen, COO, EcoFleet quiet plans have a sound, coffee pouring, keys unlocking, whiteboard squeak. It's the opposite of applause. I recommend it. 3 months later, July 12th, a Thursday, I walked back into room B, same auditorium. Same crane camera looming like a gentle dinosaur. Same summer air syrupy with too much HVAC. And the same man at the front, Mark Leland, adjusting a lapel and a smile. Only this time, I was not there to be dismissed. I was there to present. EcoFleet had booked the space because they wanted neutrality. They were announcing a supplier change, and airless hotel conference rooms depress people. They asked Albright to send a team to hear the decision. In a bit of theater none of us admitted we enjoyed, they had asked me to present the operational outcomes before they announced the vendor selection. We need the person who did the work to talk about the work, Mara said. Wild idea, I know. I wore a suit like armor. Navy, honest. I stepped to the lectern with 9 slides, 4 charts, 2 tables, 0 adjectives I didn't need. I tucked a small velvet shadow box into my bag, something I meant to leave behind. On the first row sat 4 EcoFleet executives. On the second row, Albright's team, including 2 people I'd mentored, and the VP who once told me my energy was intimidating because I answered questions without wanting to be liked. Mark entered in a flurry that made the camera adjust. He stopped short when he saw me. For half a second, his face forgot itself. Then he pasted on his public one, the one that always reminded me of a magazine cover loosely attached with a magnet. Good morning, Mark, I said. Julia, he said, tone measured, like he was greeting a former neighbor at a traffic light. Shall we begin? I asked. Mara gestured to the screen. Julia, please. I clicked to slide 1, pilot overview. 2 DCs, 6 weeks, 12.4% cost reduction per mile, 22% reduction in dwell time, on-time pickup up 3.1 points. We had built a reverse auction for low utilization windows that saved $93,000 in month 2 alone. We fixed the 17-minute EDI lag by inserting a heartbeat ping on carrier handoffs, 2 hours of Nash's time and $0 in software. The math cared about no one's ego. I showed before, after heat maps. I showed a video of a Dock 4 morning after we unjammed wave sequencing. People leaned forward. Leaning forward is applause with good manners. I finished with slide 9, attribution and continuity. This plan originated inside Albright, I said. The original working group included Adams, Beale, Lynn, O'Brien, Patel. If EcoFleet transitions, we recommend Albright release these 5 employees from non-competes immediately and publicly, so the client's operations are not disrupted. It was a clean hit that refused to be a gloat. Mark stood. Thank you, Julia, he said. That was comprehensive if selectively framed. Mara turned her head. Selective? He gave the crowd murmur smile. Our internal leadership designed the transformational vision. Julia contributed at an operational level. I looked at the screen. I clicked the remote. Slide 10 wasn't on my handout, but it was in the deck. Slide 10, version history, excerpt, a table. Columns, file name, timestamp, editor, change. Rows 114. Editor, M. Leland, 11:52 p.m., renamed Julia Ops EcoFleet V5 to Arcadia Turnaround V1. Copied without attribution. Editor, M. Leland, 12:04 a.m., removed author notes. Editor, M. Leland, 12:09 a.m., replaced cover slide with revitalization. The room made that sound humans make when a concealed drawer opens. Not selective, I said. Documented. Mark's jaw twitched. This is an internal matter. Mara's voice cut air. It's a client matter. He squared his shoulders. We have a preferred partner, Arcadia, who... I clicked again. Slide 11. Vendor registration log. IP, timestamp. WeWork address. The Phoenix office Mark liked to Instagram from. The dollar figure, $280,000 for advisory. Line item matched to a canceled internal training. We're exiting this relationship, Mara said, not unkind. Today. Public reckoning number 1 landed with the quietness of a done thing. I didn't smile. I don't enjoy dismemberment. I enjoy alignment. We broke for 12 minutes. People whispered under the exit signs. Mark talked into his phone, face turned to the corner as if the paint could save him. My former team members looked at me the way people look at a lighthouse after they've been told the dark is good for their eyes. I walked to the back row, drank water that tasted like dust, and waited. When the group reconvened, EcoFleet announced a 3-year contract for operational redesign and management. Vendor, JR Systems. Eyes slid to me. Mark took a step forward. This is highly irregular, he said, as if irregular were a synonym for unjust. Julia built the plan, Mara said. We're hiring the person who did the work. Public reckoning number 2 is the one that doesn't require volume. It's the one that follows paragraphs with a period large enough to see from space. Mark sat down slowly, as if gravity had increased. I breathed for the first time in 2 hours. I didn't look at him. That wasn't my work. My office over the upholstery shop bloomed like a cautious plant. I added 3 desks, 2 monitors per station, a ficus that shed whenever someone said QBR, and a coffee pot that kept time better than my watch. I hired Adams and O'Brien on day 10 of the contract, released from their non-competes after some... Mara sent 1 letter copied to 3 regulators and 2 board members. I brought Beal on in month 2. Lynn and Patel stayed at Albright, but I told them my door stayed open and meant it. We built schedule templates that looked like jazz, structured enough to move, flexible enough to swing. Nash automated the reverse auction. Cadence so quietly I thought it had always been part of the building. I instituted our no overtime rule and watched performance rise like a loaf not punched to death. People went home at 6, came back at 9, and did not burn. EcoFleet sent this on August 3rd, micromessage number 4. Email, client, Julia. We're thrilled to work directly with you. You're the reason we stayed. Mara, I printed it and pinned it beside the badge frame. At Albright, the internal rumor factory did what it does, found a rhythm. A junior PM I'd mentored texted screenshots of internal memos, including a narrative document that praised transformational leadership. The last page included a brand defense plan with phrases like controlling the story and reframing legacy leadership as blockers. Legacy. That's a word people use when they don't want to admit they owe someone rent. By week 6 of the contract, EcoFleet's on-time pickup beat 99% for the first time since 2018. Our per-mile costs fell another 5.4%. Customer complaints dropped 38%. Numbers move slower than headlines, but they move. Albright's stock, once stable as a brick, dipped 12% in 2 weeks. That's not catastrophe. That's a board meeting. When the invitation came, it was disguised as an olive branch. September 28th, an email with a subject line so polite it squeaked, Julia. The Albright Board is hosting a reputation and resilience session to gather stakeholder perspectives. We would value your attendance and insights, given your long tenure and recent engagement with EcoFleet. Board Secretariat. I sent it to Brian and waited 9 minutes. Do you want to go? He asked when he called. Yes, I said. Why? Because truth doesn't threaten itself. The boardroom was not the auditorium. No hot lights, no crane cameras. Just wood that held old conversations and a view of the river pretending it had never been polluted. The table seated 14. Coffee arrived in white cups with saucers, because rich people believe in saucers. Nameplates faced inward like small engraved prayers. Mark sat 2 down from the chair, hair perfect, suit a darker graphite to communicate gravity. On the opposite side sat Mara, who had been invited as a key account representative. She and I exchanged nods like 2 musicians who know the same song. The presentation began with a slide that said, "Owning our narrative." The communications director spoke in soothing tones about reframing. The chair asked for external perspectives. Mara went first, straightforward, surgical. "We prefer to work with the people who do the work," she said. "We retained Albright for logistics. We found leadership more interested in sizzle than steak." Then the chair turned to me. "Ms. Reed?" I looked at my hands. I looked at the river. I looked at the badge in the little velvet shadow box in my bag and set it on the table in front of me. Air shifted. Every person at that table recognized it. People who sign checks recognize symbols. "I was fired in a town hall," I said. "In front of employees in this room and 11 remote sites. I was told I didn't fit the direction. Minutes later, the plan my team built was renamed and sold to a vendor controlled by the CEO. Documentation exists. Your client saw it. So did your staff. People know the difference between vision and theft." Mark spoke without asking permission. "With respect, please," the chair said. "It sounded like a mother's not now." I continued. "I'm not here to ask for a job or to settle a score. I am here because the people who built your revenue are being asked to applaud the people who removed them, and you are bleeding quiet talent every week. If you care about resilience, begin by telling the truth publicly about the work. Attribute it. Promote it. And stop humiliating your backbone." Silence, the good kind and the bad kind, took the room. It lasted 11 seconds. I counted because I count when it matters. The chair folded his hands. "Thank you, Ms. Reed." He turned to Mark. "Mr. Leland, do you dispute any of this documentation?" Mark shifted on leather. "The documentation is selective." "That is not a dispute," the chair said. I stood. I had 2 more sentences. "Humiliation is a poor governance tool," I said. "It gets you fear, not performance. The people who do the work are tired of clapping for spectacle. That's all." I set the velvet box in the middle of the table and flipped it open. Inside lay my badge framed behind matte glass. It caught the ceiling light like a small moon. "Leave that," the chair said softly. Public Reckoning number 3 did not trend on the internet. It did not need to. It moved through a building like weather. Brian later told me that after I left, the board voted 9-3 to open an external review. A month later, Mark resigned to pursue new opportunities. 2 VPs with strong jawlines and weaker morals followed him out. 5 managers were reinstated to jobs with titles that meant they could work again. No one called me to celebrate. That felt right. Fall in our city is a golden liar. It pretends to be gentle. It hides teeth. I walked to the office each morning through leaves that looked like spent coins and thought about the economy of respect. What costs, what pays, on the wall above my desk. I hung 2 nameplates. Julia Reed, Senior Operations Director. The old one I'd rescued from a box once. After an intern misprinted it, Director of Operation, and I couldn't stand the missing S. And beneath it, Julia Reed, Founder JR Systems. They made a tidy duet. Past and present, both honest. We grew carefully, 6 full-timers by December, 3 contractors who liked naps and deliverables in that order. We took one new client at a time, said no more than yes, left money on the table when the smell was wrong. We kept the no overtime rule and a Friday 3 p.m. walk rule that saved more arguments than any handbook. On the first Thursday of each month, I left at 4, took the train to my mother's apartment, and let her feed me soup that tasted like history. She asked about work, about men, about whether I was sleeping. I lied once, then decided she deserved better and told her the truth. Her approval was a weather pattern I could never control and could always trust. One evening, close to Christmas, I got a card, paper, with a stamp, from Nick, the security guard who had been made to stand up at town hall with a face that said, "I hate this." "Ms. Reed, you don't know me much, but I'm the guy who picked up your badge." I didn't hand it in. I figured it would find its way back to you. I keep working nights. It's quiet now. I think people breathe easier. Thought you should know. Nikki propped the card next to the framed badge. The little white clock had become something else. Not a grave marker, but a mile marker. Sometimes people ask if I regret not suing. I don't. Litigation is a form of speech. It is not the only one. I wanted a different story. One where the person who does the work keeps doing it. Where the numbers tell the truth out loud. Where a room that once broke you becomes a room where you speak and leave and no one owns your name. On the final day of the year, I went back to Room B for a charity gala. The crane camera had been replaced. The lights felt softer. The coat check lady called me sweetheart in a way that made me miss my grandmother. I stood at the back for a minute and watched people laugh. I thought of the thud my badge made when it hit the carpet. I thought of the silence that followed. I thought of the weight of paper, 1.3 inches thick, enough to anchor a small boat. On my way out, a junior analyst from Albright stopped me. She looked 26, hungry and awake. "Ms. Reed?" she said. "I'm learning ops. Everyone says it's not glamorous. They say I should switch to product. Did you ever—" She broke off, embarrassed by the size of the question. I smiled. "Ops is the part of the world that keeps its promises," I said. "Find a place that lets you keep them. If they humiliate you for telling the truth, leave. If they attribute your work, stay. Either way, write it down." She nodded like she'd just memorized a password. At home, I poured tea and wrote 9 words on an index card. Revenge, justice, plus peace. Getting the work done. I slid the card behind the badge frame. A secret caption. If you've ever been fired in public, remember this. Silence is not surrender. Sometimes, silence is a tool you keep sheathed until you need to cut a rope cleanly and watch the wrong ship drift away. And if you've ever done the work and watched someone rename it, if you have, do me a favor. Don't waste your story on their stage. Build your own. Put your name on the door in a font you like. Hang your old badge on a wall where no one claps and no one fires you and the heater clanks at 6:05 and you turn off the light. Then go home. Tomorrow, we get to work. If this hit a nerve, if you've watched a spotlight swallow the person who built the stage, tell me your moment in the comments. What would you have done in my place? Subscribe to Office Revenge Files for more clean, lawful payback stories where the work wins and the numbers testify.